The stars were beautiful tonight. Not that they weren't always beautiful, but there was something different about them now. Something haunting. Captain Elias Voss leaned against the railing of the observation deck, his eyes scanning the endless expanse of space. He'd been staring at those same stars for 20 years as a naval officer in the United Earth Fleet. But tonight they felt heavier, more alive, like they were watching him back. He sipped his coffee, black and bitter, just the way he liked it. The silence of the ship hummed around him, broken only by the occasional distant clatter of boots on metal floors. The UES Resolute wasn't a flashy vessel. She was old, worn, and reliable, much like her captain. But she had seen better days. Hell, hadn't they all? Elias's fingers tightened around the mug as he thought about the message they'd received 2 weeks ago. A distress signal, faint and ancient, originating from a star system so far out on the galactic rim that no human had ever set foot there. It wasn't just the location that made it strange. It was the language. It wasn't human. And yet somehow, their computers had managed to decode it. "Help us," it had said. "The darkness is coming." The darkness. What the hell did that even mean? Elias didn't know, but he couldn't shake the feeling that whatever it wasn't good. Command had ordered them to investigate, though not without hesitation. Sending a single ship into uncharted territory based on a cryptic alien distress call wasn't exactly standard protocol. But humanity had changed over the last century. They weren't the same cautious species they'd once been. They were explorers now, pioneers, bold, reckless, and maybe a little desperate to prove themselves in a galaxy that still saw them as newcomers. "Captain," a voice crackled through the comms, pulling Elias from his thoughts. It was Lieutenant Harper, his second in command. "We're approaching the coordinates." Elias straightened, setting his mug down on the railing. "On my way," he replied, his voice steady despite the unease coiling in his gut. The bridge was a hive of activity when he arrived. Officers manned their stations, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of holographic displays. Harper stood near the central console, her sharp features tense with focus. She was young, barely 30, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone twice her age. Elias trusted her implicitly. "What do we have?" he asked, stepping up beside her. Harper gestured to the main screen, where a swirling mass of light and shadow filled the display. "That's the source of the signal," she said. "A derelict station orbiting a dead star. No life signs, no power readings, nothing. Just this." Elias frowned. The station was massive, easily the size of a small moon, its surface scarred and pitted with age. It looked ancient, older than anything he'd ever seen. And yet, there was something almost familiar about it, as if it had been waiting for them all along. "Take us in closer," he ordered. "But keep shields up and weapons hot. I don't want any surprises." As the Resolute crept toward the station, the tension on the bridge was palpable. Every eye was fixed on the screen, every breath held in anticipation. And then, just as they reached visual range, the lights on the station flickered to life. "Energy spike!" one of the technicians shouted. "The station's powering up!" Elias's heart skipped a beat. "Shields at maximum! Prepare for evasive maneuvers!" But before anyone could react, a beam of light shot out from the station, enveloping the Resolute in a shimmering cocoon. The ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring as systems overloaded and screens went dark. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. The bridge fell silent, save for the ragged breathing of the crew. Elias gripped the edge of the console, his knuckles white. "Status report," he barked. Harper checked her display, her brow furrowed. "Shields are intact, no damage to the hull, but we're not where we were." "What do you mean?" She pointed to the navigation readout. "We've been moved. The star system we were in, it's gone. We're somewhere else entirely." Elias stared at the screen, his mind racing. How was that possible? What kind of technology could move an entire ship across the galaxy in an instant? And why? Before he could dwell on it further, a new voice echoed through the bridge. It wasn't coming from the comms or the speakers. It was everywhere, surrounding them, penetrating them. "Humans," it said, deep and resonant, with a tone that sent chills down Elias's spine. You have answered our call. The crew froze, their eyes darting around the room. Elias stepped forward, his jaw clenched. Who are you? He demanded. What do you want? There was a pause, and then the voice spoke again. We are the Arkesh, the firstborn of the stars. Long ago, we ruled this galaxy, guiding its younger races toward enlightenment. But we grew arrogant, blind to the dangers lurking in the void. The darkness came, and we fell. The darkness, Elias repeated, his chest tightening. What is it? A force beyond comprehension, the voice replied. It consumes everything in its path. Stars, planets, civilizations. We fought it, but we were not strong enough. Now it has returned, and your galaxy stands on the brink of annihilation. Elias exchanged a glance with Harper, who looked as shaken as he felt. Why contact us? He asked. Why humans? Because you are different, the Arkesh said. Your kind is resilient, unpredictable. You possess a spark that we lost long ago. If there is any hope of stopping the darkness, it lies with you. Elias took a deep breath, trying to process what he was hearing. An ancient alien race, a galaxy-devouring force, and humanity as the last line of defense. It sounded like something out of a bad sci-fi novel. And yet, standing here on this bridge, staring at the impossible station before him, he couldn't deny the truth of it. What do you need us to do? He asked finally. There is a weapon, the Arkesh said. A relic of our war with the darkness. It was hidden away, scattered across the galaxy to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. You must find the pieces and reassemble it. Only then can the darkness be defeated. Elias nodded slowly. And how do we find these pieces? The station trembled, and a beam of light shot out from its core, striking the Resolute. The ship's systems flared to life, data flooding the displays. We have given you the coordinates, the Arkesh said. But be warned, others will seek the weapon as well. The darkness has agents, and they will stop at nothing to see you fail. Understood, Elias said, his voice firm. We'll do whatever it takes. Good, the Arkesh said. Then go, humans. The fate of the galaxy rests in your hands. The light faded, and the station went dark once more. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Harper turned to Elias, her expression grim. Well, she said, I guess we've got our mission. Elias allowed himself a small, humorless smile. Yeah, he said. No pressure. As the Resolute set course for the first set of coordinates, Elias couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. The Arkesh had called humanity resilient, unpredictable. But were they truly ready for what lay ahead? Could they really stand against a force that had brought an ancient empire to its knees? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain. They wouldn't go down without a fight. Humanity had been underestimated before, and they'd always come out swinging. This time would be no different. At least, Elias hoped so. As the UES Resolute slipped through the vast emptiness of space, Elias Voss sat alone in his quarters, staring at the small holographic map projected above his desk. The coordinates provided by the Arkesh were scattered across the galaxy like breadcrumbs leading into the unknown. Each one represented a piece of the so-called weapon they needed to reassemble, a weapon that might be their only hope against the darkness. The enormity of it all weighed on him. He wasn't just leading his crew into uncharted territory. He was dragging humanity into a war they barely understood, a war against something ancient and incomprehensible. And yet, despite the fear gnawing at the edges of his mind, there was also a spark of determination. If humanity had proven anything over the centuries, it was that they thrived under pressure. They didn't back down. Not from aliens, not from nature, not even from themselves. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. Come in, he called, straightening in his chair. The door slid open, and Lieutenant Harper stepped inside. She looked as tired as he felt, her dark hair pulled back into a messy bun, her uniform slightly rumpled. But her eyes were sharp, filled with the same resolve that kept Elias going. Thought you'd want an update, she said, holding out a data pad. We're about 12 hours from the first set of coordinates. Long-range scans show no signs of activity in the area, but I wouldn't count on that lasting. Elias took the datapad and skimmed the report. No signs of activity, he muttered. That's either very good or very bad. My money's on bad, Harper said dryly, crossing her arms. Nothing about this mission has been straightforward so far. Why start now? He chuckled softly, appreciating her candor. It was one of the reasons he'd chosen her as his XO. Harper didn't sugarcoat things, but she also didn't let fear paralyze her. She was exactly the kind of person he needed by his side right now. Anything else? He asked, setting the datapad aside. She hesitated, her expression shifting. Actually, yes. There's something I wanted to talk to you about. Off the record. Elias raised an eyebrow. Go on. Harper glanced at the door, as if making sure it was closed, then leaned in slightly. It's about the Arkesh, she said quietly. I've been thinking about what they told us, about how they lost their war against the darkness. Doesn't it strike you as odd that they're putting all their faith in us? I mean, we're barely out of our cradle compared to them. What makes them think we'll succeed where they failed? Elias leaned back in his chair, considering her words. It was a question he'd been asking himself ever since they left the station. The Arkesh had called humanity resilient, unpredictable. But was that really enough? I don't know, he admitted. Maybe they see something in us that we don't see in ourselves. Or maybe they're just desperate, and we're their last option. Harper frowned. Desperation doesn't exactly inspire confidence. No, it doesn't, Elias agreed. But it doesn't change the fact that we're here, and we have a job to do, whether we're ready for it or not. She nodded slowly, though the doubt in her eyes didn't fade entirely. Fair enough, just promise me you'll keep your guard up. I don't trust those glowing voices any more than I trust this so-called weapon. Elias gave her a reassuring smile. Don't worry, Lieutenant. I'm not planning to take anything at face value. We'll figure this out, together. That seemed to ease her tension, if only slightly. She straightened and gave him a crisp nod. I'll let you get some rest, sir. You're going to need it. As she left, Elias returned his gaze to the holographic map. Harper was right to be cautious. The Arkesh might have given them a mission, but they hadn't given them the whole story. And until Elias knew exactly what they were dealing with, he wasn't about to trust anyone or anything completely. 12 hours later, the Resolute dropped out of warp near the first set of coordinates. The crew gathered on the bridge, their eyes fixed on the main screen as the ship approached its destination, a barren, lifeless planet orbiting a dying red star. Its surface was cracked and scorched, the remnants of ancient lava flows carving jagged patterns across the landscape. There's something down there, Harper reported, her fingers flying over her console. A structure of some kind, buried beneath the surface. Elias leaned forward in his chair. Can you get a clear reading? Not from up here, she said. The atmosphere's too unstable. We'll need to send a team down to investigate. He nodded. Prep the shuttle. I'll lead the away team myself. Harper turned to him, her expression unreadable. Are you sure that's a good idea, Captain? If something goes wrong, I trust you to get this ship and its crew out of here, Elias said firmly. But I'm not sending my people into the unknown without being there myself. That's not how I operate. She hesitated, then gave a reluctant nod. Understood. I'll have the team ready in 10 minutes. The descent to the planet's surface was rough, the shuttle buffeted by violent winds and pockets of turbulence. Elias gripped the armrests of his seat, his jaw clenched as the craft shuddered around him. Beside him, Harper and 2 other crew members, Ensign Vega and Chief Engineer Patel, held on tightly, their faces pale but determined. When they finally touched down, the landscape outside was even more desolate than it had appeared from orbit. The ground was blackened and cracked, steam rising from fissures that glowed faintly with molten rock. The air was thick and acrid, forcing them to rely on their suits' oxygen supplies. This place is charming, Vega muttered as they stepped out of the shuttle, his voice crackling through the comms. Stay focused, Elias said, scanning the horizon. The structure should be about half a kilometer to the east. Let's move. They trekked across the harsh terrain, the heat radiating up through their boots. As they neared the coordinates, a massive fissure came into view, its edges jagged and uneven. At the bottom, partially buried in rock and ash, was what could only be described as a temple. Its architecture was alien, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and shimmer when viewed from different angles. "What the hell is that?" Patel whispered, her voice tinged with awe. "The first piece of the puzzle," Elias said grimly. "Let's find a way inside." They descended carefully into the fissure, using ropes and harnesses to navigate the treacherous terrain. When they reached the temple's entrance, they found it sealed by a massive stone door, its surface covered in strange symbols. "Any ideas?" Elias asked, glancing at Patel. She studied the symbols, her brow furrowed. "They look similar to the ones the Arkesh used in their transmission. Maybe it's some kind of code?" Before they could investigate further, a low rumble echoed through the fissure. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and a shadow passed overhead. "Captain," Harper said urgently, pointing upward. "We've got company." Elias looked up and felt his stomach drop. A sleek, black ship was descending toward them, its design unlike anything he'd ever seen. It moved with an eerie grace, its surface shimmering like liquid metal. "Get that door open," he ordered, drawing his sidearm. "Now." Patel worked frantically, her fingers flying over the symbols as the rest of the team took defensive positions. The alien ship landed nearby, and a group of figures emerged. Tall, humanoid, and clad in dark, angular armor. Their movements were precise, almost mechanical, and their weapons glowed with an ominous blue light. "Who are they?" Vega asked, his voice shaking. "I don't know," Elias said, leveling his weapon. "But I'm guessing they're not here to help." The figures advanced, their weapons raised. Elias opened fire, the sharp crack of his pistol echoing through the fissure. The others followed suit, their shots striking the advancing enemies but doing little to slow them down. "Captain!" Patel shouted. "I've got it!" The stone door rumbled and began to slide open, revealing a dark passageway beyond. Elias fired one last shot, then turned to his team. "Inside! Now!" They sprinted through the doorway, the heavy stone sliding shut behind them, just as the first of the armored figures reached it. For a moment, there was silence, broken only by the sound of their ragged breathing. "What the hell were those things?" Vega asked, his voice trembling. "I don't know," Elias said, his grip tightening on his weapon. "But I think we just met the agents of the darkness." And as they ventured deeper into the temple, the weight of their mission pressed heavier on Elias's shoulders. This was only the beginning, and already the stakes were higher than he'd ever imagined.